Before we start the experiment, we can lubricate all our joints. This is the vegetable oil. It's going to work. We just need to reduce the friction around the joints. It is good, it's moving. Here we can do more lubrication here. Vehicle. This one is very well lubricated. You try to reduce the friction on the sides, what you call it, the static friction. Take care of that later on. This is our main vehicle. To understand how vehicles steer or keep the straight path or balance the weight, you need to understand that a vehicle is a big object. It's not a buoyant object, which means each point in contact with the ground of the wheels will have to have three forces applying to it, acting on it. A vertical force, that is the weight that is loaded on that wheel. Longitudinal force, that is the drive that pulls the vehicle forward. And a lateral force that keeps the vehicle in line. The lateral forces are static friction that prevent the vehicle from coming from one side to another. The forward force is the drive force, whether you are on the drive wheel, you are pushing, or on the steer you are being pushed with the drive. In either case, you are going to have a force going forward. This is a kinetic friction force. Kinetic because you have to have a spinning here to make the vehicle move. Static means you prevent the vehicle from going from one side to another. The weight determines the other two forces. The vertical weight going down, a fraction of it will determine the static force. Another fraction will determine the kinetic force, and the roughness of the surface will determine how much friction you have. So at each one of these wheels, each point of contact with the ground, you will have three forces. In this case, you have four wheels. Multiply the four wheels by 3, that is 12 forces acting on the body. How do you compensate? You compensate them by steering. The only purpose of steering is to compensate between the lateral static friction and the longitudinal kinetic friction, such that you can keep a straight path. In this vehicle, we have a pivot, which means this vehicle can steer around that axle. In this vehicle, you don't have a steering mechanism because the four wheels cannot be steered. The only way that can be steered is hooking this vehicle to this vehicle. You are going to see that this vehicle is a problem. This vehicle cannot keep a straight line because you have four static forces, one here, one here, one here, and one here, and you have no way to steer them. This vehicle is not practical to design or drive on a road. This vehicle is much easier because you have only two forces, one here and one here, so you can steer this force around, this vehicle around by pulling it. If you put weight on it, you can increase the friction so you can steer it. So the first experiment today will be to test how can this vehicle stay in a straight line. We put on the side markers, those are pencils, like cones on the highway. We are going to apply the three forces to see how this vehicle can balance itself. You have a horizontal force that's longitudinal, pulling forward. This force will apply 4 longitudinal forces on each one of these wheels. And you have 4 lateral friction, static friction forces that will work together to balance the vehicle between the two lines on the road. And you have the weight of the vehicle that determines the friction at each wheel. Of course, the heavier the vehicle is, the more friction you have, the more stability it should have. So let us see this vehicle. As we said, we have a pivot in the middle. This is a combination vehicle, and I lubricated each wheel, and I have no weight on it. Let us see how this vehicle performs when it is in the center. We put it on the center between the two lanes, how it performs from the beginning to the end. We are going to come here in the bucket. And we put some money, enough to make the vehicle move. Got stuck there because of some rough surface. I can give it a jolt with my finger to make it just keep going. Perfect. It came only hit in this side, but it kept a very good path. Let's do it again. As we said, this vehicle has 4 wheels and a pivot in the middle. It can steer itself. You have a longitudinal force along the yellow cable. That is the kinetic friction force. You have 4 lateral forces that are the static friction forces, and you have the weight of the vehicle that will cause the friction. We are going to let it go and look how is it going to stay in a straight line. That tells you about the balance of the 3 forces at each wheel. Those are 12 forces acting on this vehicle to keep it in the straight line between the lines or the pencils. Let us go. I will let my hand go and it will go. That's perfect. Let us now change the vehicle and see the difference. Now I have a double. That is a tractor with an axle in the middle at the 5th wheel. That's a trailer. Another trailer with an axle in the middle. Remember, this trailer is easy to steer because it has only 2 wheels. If it has 4 wheels, it's going to be hard to steer. Let us see how this combination will keep the straight line. Can it align itself in the middle? We are going to let it roll and see if it can stay in a straight line. The one in the back is too big, it has large wheels. Let us just let it go. Can it keep the straight path? Because the one in the back has a problem. This is the final accident, because that wheel got stuck here. We are going to make it wider, hoping that will work. Right, so it doesn't, the highway is too narrow for it. Let us now see if that, I don't think it will make it all the way to the end. Let us just try. How far can it go in a straight line? It got stuck in the same spot. We are going to try this vehicle alone, pulling it with a cable to see if it can make it to the end. We will let. Yes, it did make it. Let us explain again why when it has no other vehicle it can keep a straight line. Simply because you reduced the number of forces on the sides, the lateral, the longitudinal, and the weight. As you see, the vehicle is standing on two wheels now. You have a front puller, a longitudinal force, two lateral forces, and the weight. So here you have only 6 forces, 3 on the right and 3 on the left. When I let my hand go, look, it's going to make it all the way to the end without colliding with the sides. It made it. It made it. It's a slide, but it made it. We'll now try this vehicle that does not steer at all. As you see, these 4 wheels, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side, don't have any steering ability. So if you pull it in any direction here, you are not going to be able to steer it, because you have lateral static friction here, lateral static friction here, lateral static friction, and longitudinal force. The longitudinal force cannot be compensated, because you cannot get this vehicle, for example, if you cannot move if you move it from, you push it this side, that is the static friction. That is very hard. That's the static. If you move it this way, this is the kinetic friction. It's easy to move. And the weight will determine how much friction that you have. Can we ever keep this vehicle in a straight line? Most probably never. Let us try to see if we can ever make it go in a straight line, because it has no steering mechanism. We will apply the pulling force on it and see how far can it go in a straight line. The reason it did better than the other ones is because it just was forced. It was forced on the blast to go this way by friction. Let us try to do it again. You are just dragging it. It is not moving smooth. Let us now make a combination. Now a combination. As we said, this trailer has no steering. It performed much better than I thought, because we're using a plastic road, and that is very smooth metal surface, so it can slide. It's not rubber, so it can be dragged. If it doesn't steer, it can be dragged. We're using a combination here. We're using a 5th wheel here, so there is a steering here. There is a steering between these two, and there is a steering here. And let us see if we can keep this combination in a straight line. We don't need to put weight here. Let us just put weight. Can we keep this combination in a straight line? Look at the cord. When it is stretched, that means I dropped the weight on the floor. I can just put it with my hand. Got stuck in the back. Let us do it again to see if that is it. Here is the combination almost in the middle. Let us see where it's going to get stuck. Not bad.